Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Wenning. I am alive. My surgery on my arm went well. I have a doctor's appointment on Monday afternoon, and hopefully the doctor will tell me that I can come back to see you all on Tuesday. Today we're going to talk about sentence forms, and this hopefully is a review for you. We're going to talk about simple sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences, and compound complex sentences. And then I'm going to ask you to do some practice exercises that we will grade tomorrow. So let's take a look at our slides. First of all, this is the easy one, simple sentences. They're independent clauses. They contain a subject, a predicate, and express a complete thought. So, for example, in A, some students like to study in the mornings. Students is the subject, like is the verb, and it is a complete thought. We also have Juan and Anthony play football every afternoon. Here we have our subject, and we call this a compound subject. We have our action verb, and it is a complete thought, so that's a simple sentence. Alicia goes to the library and studies every day. We have our this is our subject and our verb, and this is also a complete thought. Okay, and this is also a compound predicate. She goes and studies every day. So those are all examples of simple sentences. Here's some practice. So it says identify the subject and predicate in these simple sentences. Cindy and Sue auditioned for the lead role in the play. Okay, so hopefully you are saying that Cindy and Sue are the subjects. Auditioned is the verb, okay, and it is a complete thought, so it's a simple sentence. The kittens were adopted by the family. Kittens, again, this is our subject, were adopted, that's our verb phrase, and it's a complete thought. And even if you took away by the family, which is actually a prepositional phrase, this would still be a complete thought. The kittens were adopted. The next one, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are my favorite. So here it's tempting to think that peanut butter and jelly is a compound subject. However, they are just describing what kind of sandwiches are my favorite. So sandwiches is our subject. Are is our linking verb. Okay, it's a linking verb, and this is a complete thought. The committee decorated the gym for Friday night's dance. Okay, what is the subject? It is the committee. And then what did they do? Well, they decorated the gym. So decorated is our verb, and we have a complete thought. So that is a simple sentence. The surprise party was organized by Wendy's two best friends. Okay, so again we have the party and was organized, and then again by Wendy's two best friends. That's a prepositional phrase. You could just have the period, it just gives us more information. You could just have the period after organized and it would still be a simple sentence. Okay, let's keep going. Compound sentences. They contain two independent clauses, two simple sentences, joined by a coordinating conjunction. So the conjunctions are as follows: for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. And remember, we use the term fanboys to really help us remember that. So it's for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. That's what fanboy stands for. And if you see one of those, you should anticipate that there are two simple sentences joined together. So that makes it a compound sentence. Let's take a peek here. And it says, except for very short sentences, these conjunctions are always preceded by a comma. So it says, I tried to speak Spanish, comma, and my friend tried to speak English. So we have, I tried to speak Spanish. That could be its own sentence. Then we have the comma and and then it's my friend tried to speak English, that could be its own sentence also. So they're put together, that makes a compound sentence. Alex played football, comma, so Maria went shopping. Again, they could be separate, but we're making a compound sentence, and this is strong writers use different types of sentences throughout their writing. So this is a great example of a compound sentence. The class will get a reward, comma, for we always behave. Again, we have our two independent clauses joined by the comma and the conjunction. Okay? All right, let's keep going. So here, let's identify the conjunction in these compound sentences. This is so easy. I am going to the dance, comma, so I have to buy a new dress. And I know that you know so is our conjunction. Jenny took the pictures, comma, and Aaron developed them. I know that you know, and, comma, and, that's what we're looking for. New York is on the East Coast, comma, and California is on the West Coast. Again, we have two simple sentences joined by this comma and conjunction, and that makes this a compound sentence. Bill walked into the crowded room, comma, but I can't find him. So again, comma, but, that's our coordinating conjunction. Is the party on Friday, comma, or is it on Saturday? This is also a compound sentence, even though it's a question. So you can have questions as compound sentences too. Complex sentence, we're getting a little more complicated. A complex sentence has an independent clause joined by a dependent or subordinate clause. Dependent clauses do not express a complete thought and can't stand alone as sentences. Okay, they can't stand alone. So dependent can't stand alone as sentences. A dependent clause begins with a subordinating conjunction such as because, since, after, although, when, and there are many more, but these are our most common. And when you see one of these, you should be having an alarm go off in your brain that's going, woo, woo, woo. You have a dependent clause following this, dependent clause following this, woo, 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 dependent clause following this, anytime you see these words. So it says, follow these formats when writing complex sentences. Dependent clause, comma, independent clause. Since I have no milk, comma, I'll go to the store. Or independent clause, dependent clause. Notice there is no comma there. So I'll go to the store since I have no milk. All right, so you could write it both ways. It just depends on how you want to vary your sentence beginnings. This is a great way to start a sentence if you have, you don't want to start with I. All right, next one. So here are some examples. When he handed in his homework, comma, he forgot to hand the teacher the last page. Or the teacher returned the homework after she noticed the error. Notice there is no comma when the dependent clause comes second. The students are studying because they have a test tomorrow. Notice again, no comma there, but we still have a complex sentence because we have an independent clause plus a dependent clause. Again here, after they finished studying, comma, there's our dependent clause. Jack and Maria went to the movies. Okay, so let's look at identify the dependent clause in each complex sentence. Because it was raining, the game was called off. Well, we're looking at that subordinated conjunction because we're hearing that alarm go off. Woo, woo, woo. We have a dependent clause because it was raining. That is not a complete sentence. Okay. Next one, when I feel sick, I do not go to school. When, woo, woo, woo. We see this is a dependent clause here because it starts with the subordinating conjunction. Number 3, Mark is going since I never invited, or sorry, Mark is not going, poor Mark, since I never invited him. Notice we have no comma, but we see the word since, and it sets our alarms off, and we know that this is a dependent clause. So we have Mark is not going, that's an independent clause, plus since I never invited him, that's a dependent clause. Now we have a complex sentence. Okay, so again, all of these are complex sentences. George played football because Jean went shopping. Okay, so George played football, independent clause. because, woo, woo, woo. Okay, Jean went shopping. Well, so you have this dependent clause here because Jean went shopping. And I hope she got some good stuff. All right, number 5. If you want a pizza, comma, you need to order it now. If you want a pizza. And again, all of these dependent clauses, they have a subject and a verb. They just can't stand on their own. So here we have our dependent clause plus our independent clause. Okay, 2 more. You're doing a great job. Stay with me. We have compound complex sentences. These contain 2 independent clauses and 1 dependent clause. So you're going to put a comma after the dependent clause if it begins the sentence, and you're going to put a comma before the and, but, or that connects the 2 independent clauses. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Charlie could not hear his watch because it had stopped, and he was worried. So here we have Charlie could not hear his watch. That's an independent clause. Then we see our coordinating conjunction because it had stopped. That is it, and had stopped is your verb phrase. It's your subject. Had stopped is your verb. So we have a dependent clause because it starts with because. Then we have our comma and he was worried. Again, we have an independent clause. So we have independent, dependent, independent. Because it had stopped, we have our dependent clause, then a comma. Charlie could not hear his watch, comma, and he was worried. Okay, he was worried is our independent clause. Charlie could not hear his watch, independent clause. Because it had stopped, dependent clause. That makes our compound complex sentence. Although Sarah called out for Charlie, dependent clause, comma, no one answered, independent clause, and Sarah was scared, independent clause. Sarah could not see Charlie, comma, but when she was on the hilltop, she could hear him cry out. Sarah could not see Charlie is our independent clause, comma, but, now this is a tricky one because we have the but and we're thinking, oh my, there should be an independent clause coming after this, but we see our coordinating conjunction, or our subordinating conjunction, and so it says when, and I'm thinking, woo, 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 okay, that's a dependent clause, when she was on the hilltop, okay? She could hear him cry out, but when she was on the hilltop, she could hear him cry out. So we've got our, and I would actually put a comma right there. So Sarah could not see Charlie, independent. When she was on the hilltop, dependent. She could hear him cry out, independent. Okay, so now it's your turn to try. And we are going to go ahead and use some sentences from Huck Finn to see how Mark Twain uses sentence variety in his sentences. Thanks, guys. Hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.